Alright guys, this is what I said earlier. This wasn't my idea. I got this from a commercial on ESPN. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. These are my mascot picks. This is if the two mascots from the teams fought against each other, I guess. Just something stupid like that. Has nothing to do with the players. So, I'm going to start in the South region. So, first we have Memphis versus UT Arlington. That's a Tiger versus an Eagle. Tiger wins. Then you got Mississippi versus Oregon. Bulldog versus Duck. Duck can't win, so Mississippi State. You've got the Spartans versus the Owls. Well, of course the Spartans are going to win that. Then you've got the Pitt Panthers versus Oral Roberts Eagles. Once again, the Panthers are going to take that. Then you've got Marquette Eagles versus the University of Kentucky Wildcats. Wildcats win that. Then you've got Stanford versus Cornell. Now, Stanford Cardinal, or you can go from their little dancing tree. So who's going to win that fight? A dancing tree or a bear? Now, I could see where you would be frightened of a dancing tree, but I think the bear's going to take that. So Cornell wins that one. Then you've got the Miami Hurricanes versus the St. Mary's Gales. Now, the Gales, I looked it up, kind of like a chorus group or something like that. And, of course, a hurricane can blow anything away, but you can also go off of different mascots from the team. And I'm going to go off the little stork thing. And I'm guessing that could win. So I'm going to go to give the Hurricanes that one. And then you've got the Longhorns versus the Austin Peay Governors. I mean, come on. Longhorns got to win that. I mean, what's a governor going to do? Fill out papers? Vote? So, Bevo takes that, of course. So, now we have the Tigers versus the Bulldogs. Well, Tigers going to win that, so Memphis moves on. Then you've got the Spartans versus the Panthers. Well, I mean, Spartan is going to win that. Then you've got Wildcat versus a Bear. I'm thinking this matchup that the Wildcats going to have a little bit more speed than the Bear. The Bear's already in shock from the fight of dancing tree. I'm going to give the Wildcat that win. Then you have Miami versus Texas. So you've got a little stork thing versus Bevo. Longhorn wins. So, now we have Memphis versus Michigan State. A Tiger versus Spartan. Spartan's a trained warrior. I know that Maximus in Gladiator wasn't a Spartan, but he was that type of fighter. He killed like 3 tigers in that movie. So, Michigan State moves on. Then you've got Kentucky versus Texas, Wildcat versus a Longhorn. I'm going to give this one to the Wildcats. I guess this was a predatory animal. I got to get it over my Longhorns just so people won't call me too much of a homer. So, in our final matchup in the South region, we have Michigan State versus Kentucky, Spartan versus Wildcat. Michigan State moves on to the Final Four. In the West region, we have UCLA versus MVSU. I can't remember what they were again, but I know that I got the Bruins winning, so the Bruins move on. Then you've got BYU versus A&M. So you've got a Cougar versus an Aggie. Well, no one really knows what an Aggie is, so Cougar wins. Then you've got Drake Bulldogs versus the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Drake wins. Then you have UConn versus USD. You've got the Huskies versus the Toreros, which are bullfighters. Well, there's a trained fighter again, so San Diego moves on. Boilermakers versus Baylor Bears. Got a bear who's going to kill the Boilermaker. The Musketeers versus the Bulldogs. Got to go with the Musketeers. West Virginia Mountaineers versus Arizona Wildcats. Mountaineer, he's trained to fight in the woods. West Virginia wins. And then you've got Belmont. I think they're the Eagles versus Duke. I can't remember, but I got the Blue Devils moving on. Then you have the Bruins versus the Cougars. I got to take a bear in a fight like that. Then you've got a Bulldog versus a Torero. Well, a Torero kills bulls anyways, so this is just a Bulldog. So San Diego moves on. Then you've got Baylor versus Xavier. So I've got the Musketeer beating the Bear in this fight. It's going to have to be a close one, but I think the Musketeer takes it. Then I've got the Blue Devil edging out the Mountaineer in there, the last one. So now you have UCLA versus USD. So you've got a bullfighter versus a bear. I think the bear is going to take that. A bear is smarter than a bull would be. So UCLA moves on. Then you got Xavier versus Duke. Now, I got to give that one to Xavier. I think the Musketeer takes out the Blue Devil. And so now that means in our matchup we have UCLA versus Xavier, a Bruin versus Musketeer. Now, Musketeer has already killed one bear, but I don't think he has enough left in him to kill another. So I got to give this one to the Bruins. So UCLA moves on to the Final Four. Now we have UNC versus, well, I just moved on. All the number 1 seeds just moved on because I'm not even going to try to pick that over them. Then you've got Indiana versus Arkansas. You have a Hoosier, which is a person from Indiana, versus a Razorback. Razorback wins. You've got Notre Dame versus George Mason. A Leprechaun versus a Patriot. I'm going Patriot as in a Minuteman back in the day. I think that the Leprechaun uses his magic to mess around. Leprechaun wins. Notre Dame moves on. Then you've got the Cougars versus Winthrop Eagles. I think in this matchup, I think that the Eagle actually gets the best of the Cougar, able to fly around and do whatnot. So it's going to use a lot of energy up, but it wins that one. Then you've got the Hawks, St. Joseph's versus the OU Sooners, which is a huge wagon. So I'm going to give that one to OU because just by pure size, and it's going to win that one. Then you have Louisville versus Boise State, which is a Cardinal Bird versus the Bronco. Bronco wins that one. Then you have the Butler Bulldogs versus South Alabama Jaguars. Jaguar win easy. Tennessee Volunteers versus American Eagles. The Volunteers win. So that means you have a Ram versus a Razorback with UNC Arkansas. I think the Ram's smarter, has more force. The UNC moves on. Notre Dame versus Winthrop. I think the Leprechaun's magic runs out. I think the Eagle wins. Winthrop. I think that the Boise State Bronco is able to kill 2 ponies. So Boise State beats OU and moves on. I feel that the Volunteer has a lot of experience, beats the Jaguar. Tennessee moves on. So now you have North Carolina versus Winthrop. I think the Eagle takes the Ram in this one. I think the Eagle has been on a roll. He's got a lot of momentum. He pulls the upset over the Ram, Winthrop. And then I think that the Volunteer defeats the Broncos. So you've got Winthrop versus Tennessee. I think the Volunteer takes out Winthrop. So out of the East region, Tennessee is in the Final Four. Now I've got the Jayhawks versus the Vikings. I got that big, huge. The beak is going to help it a lot. So KU moves on. UNLV versus Kent State. The Golden Flash is a little bird going around, but I think the Rebel has enough firepower to take him out. UNLV wins. Clemson versus Villanova. A Tiger versus a Wildcat. Tiger wins that every time. Then you've got the Commodores versus, I forgot what Siena was now, but I remember having Vandy moving on, so Vanderbilt moves on. Then you've got USC versus Kansas State. A Trojan versus a Wildcat. Trojan's a trained warrior. Got to go with the Trojan. Wisconsin versus CSF. CSF Titans. Well, the Titans are going to beat the Titans are going to beat a Badger. So CSF move on. Then you've got Gonzaga versus Davidson. It's 2 Bulldogs. So I just got Davidson moving on. So that means you've got the Georgetown Hoyas versus the I forgot what I need to look at these again, but I've got Georgetown moving on. It's a Bulldog. I got it winning that fight. So you've got Kansas versus the Jayhawk versus the Rebel. I think the Rebel is running out of bullets, using a lot against the Golden Flash, so the Jayhawk moves on. You've got Clemson versus Vanderbilt. You've got a Tiger versus a Commodore. I got the Tigers are formative opponents. Tiger moves on. Then you've got a Trojan versus a Titan. And I think that the Trojan he's able to maneuver around and win this. So USC wins this. Then you've got Davidson versus Georgetown, 2 Bulldogs again. I give it to Davidson. So now you've got the Jayhawk versus Clemson. And I think the Tiger is going to kill the Jayhawks. Jayhawks played well, but I think the Tiger wins. So you got Clemson winning that one. And then you have USC, the Trojan, defeating the Bulldog. And I have the Trojan beating Clemson, so I've got USC in the Final Four. So my Final Four mascots is Tennessee, USC, Michigan State, UCLA. I've got the Volunteer edging out the Trojan because he's got the guns, and I've got the Spartan beating the Bear. So that means I've got in my matchup, my last matchup, Tennessee versus Michigan State. So you've got Davy Crockett versus Leonidas. And they both are in the same situations. We had to defend the place against a huge army. But the thing is, the only reason Leonidas lost was because of the pass behind him, in the movie at least. So, in the mascot picks, the Michigan State Spartans win the championship. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see you guys.